Welcome everyone to this video about short tarot readings. Now, the thing with short tarot readings is that I used to think they were kind of a scam, kind of sketchy. If I saw that someone was doing really quick readings at a market, at parties, at Ren fairs, I would be like, well, it doesn't really reflect the deep and interesting and mysterious nature of tarot enough. It's just like a transaction. It's just like question, answer, goodbye. Now, have I changed my mind about short readings? Yes. Do I want you to change your mind about them and be confident in actually doing them for other people? Yes, I do. That's why I'm making this video, because I've had quite the process with that myself. If you, like me, love doing long tarot sessions, like 1 hour, even 1.5 hours, I want to challenge you with this video to see things a bit differently with regards to short readings. Because I always felt like short readings weren't for me until I really just realized that I needed to learn how to do them, because I did not have the confidence to do them because I was so confident in my long, elaborate, nuanced tarot readings and never really practiced doing short readings. And that's exactly what I've been doing. So let's talk about it. It's a skill like any other, To give short readings is a skill, just like giving long readings is a skill. And you might be better at one, you might be good at both. It really depends on what style reader you have. And it's not a skill that you have to have, but it is helpful in my opinion. Because I think a long reading, if you can do a long reading, you can do a short reading. If you can do a short reading, that doesn't necessarily mean you can do a long one. So if you are able to do long readings for yourself, for others, that is the prerequisite to be able to do short ones. Because you already know all of the nuance, you just have to kind of make it a little bit smaller and manage to put it into a 5 or 10 minute reading, which is really not a lot of time. But at parties, if you're just doing a quick reading at a bar, you don't want to spend the whole evening with just one person and have tarot be the evening filling task for you. Then you need to have that skill to do a 5 or 10 minute read and have the person be satisfied, you are satisfied with your skills, and that's it. Now, if you don't know me, I'm Anya Esma. I have been teaching tarot on here since 2018. And as you might have heard from what I've been saying, I do focus on the really deep symbolism, on the really deep psychological meanings of tarot, on doing shadow work with tarot, doing true healing work with tarot that takes time. But that doesn't mean we shouldn't also be able to do short readings. Spirituality and tarot go really well together. And I think that was one of the mental blockages that I had, that I was like, it's unethical to do such a short reading. I want to provide someone with all the tools that they need in order to heal whatever is going on, Now, do I love short readings now? Probably not. Longer readings will always be my favorite. But have I started seeing them differently? Yes. I don't see them as transactional anymore. And even though tarot isn't about quick answers and it's about this deep reflection, I still deeply believe that even with a 5 or 10 minute reading, you can really give someone value. You can really give someone new perspectives. You can give them new ways of thinking. You might not be able to completely guide them through a healing process or anything like that, no. But you are able to give them the first piece of a puzzle that they themselves can put together with that short tarot reading. And that's really the beauty of it. You can, ask about the why, the how, what energies are around me, how can I change those energies. Those are things that you can do in a short reading as well. But I'm going to give you a few pointers as we go through this video on what you need to know when you're doing a short reading, and I will also tell you the exact process that I use. Because with short readings, you can't really afford to flounder about. You kind of need a process that you follow so that you and the querent are satisfied at the end of the day. So let's talk about what you need to be aware of with short readings. This comes from someone who is really a long reading pro. So if you love short readings anyway, maybe what I'm about to say is going to sound very boring to you. But if you love long readings, nuanced readings like I do, these are going to make a lot of sense for you, because those were kind of the roadblocks that I had when I started teaching myself how to do quick and short readings. Now, first of all, very obviously, you need to be succinct. And that is, do you say succinct or succinct in English? I don't know. I'm not a native speaker. Anyways, you need to be short with your words. And that is a matter of practice. I used to think this was reductive and you can't just boil down a card to one word. I love waffling about the meaning and the symbolism and what's on the card and what energies this card and what element and blah, 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 blah. I could talk about that forever. But in a short reading, you got to zip it sometimes. You just have to give the essence of the card. That is a combination of your own intuition and the card itself. You can practice this right now, actually. You could stop this video, get out a deck, and draw a random card, and then say just one word, a single word, nothing else, And you could do that. Then after you've done it with like one card, you could draw 5 cards and say one word for each of them. And the beauty of that is that as you put those 5 words together, you're going to realize there's a story behind that. There's a progression, even if it is just 5 words, So that is one thing that I would recommend, that you practice, just say one word. I will probably do that in my members only video and also on Patreon. So if you want to join my YouTube members, you can, because I will show you how I do that myself and how I practice these readings. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. So first thing, you have to be short and you have to practice that. And you have to practice not giving it too much nuance. That's the second point. You cannot flip-flop around too much. You need to sort of commit to a meaning. That doesn't mean you can't say, oh, actually, I think maybe this card is in a different context than I first thought, and you kind of rework it, but you have to commit. We all have commitment issues, at least in my generation, but this time you have to commit to your words and give weight to your words. Often people who overspeak in tarot readings, they lack a little bit of confidence about their skills, so they try to make up for it by saying a lot of words. I still do that sometimes. And that is not going to work in a 5 or 10 minute reading. So you can't flip-flop, you can't go through every single possible meaning. You can still explore nuance, especially if you keep it to 1 card or 2 or 3 cards. If you do more than that, you're not going to be able to be nuanced about the cards. You're really just going to take one piece of information from each card, which is fine too. It really depends on your reading style. You can talk 10 minutes about a single card, or you can talk 10 minutes about 10 cards, because you just take little pieces of info from them, And the third thing is, you will not have a lot of time to explain symbols, elements, the history of tarot, how tarot actually works. And when I show you the process later that I go through, you have to account for the fact that people don't know how tarot works. They don't know how to ask questions. But there are ways where you can go through that part very quickly without giving them a lecture about your spiritual beliefs about tarot, because there's no time for that. I can tell you that. Whereas with a longer reading, of course, you might want to manage expectations, go back and forth, tell people. I mean, ideally, they know you as a reader and they know your style. But sometimes you still have to explain, I don't answer those types of questions. Let's reroute it, etc. That has to happen a lot more quick when you do a short reading. And then the fourth thing is, you really have to guide the session and make yourself the authority. What do I mean by that? You have to make your authority known by communicating clearly about the boundaries. You have to make it clear with how you approach them. You have to be upfront about how much time there maybe is, because there's people who don't have that sort of initiative. I have that initiative very naturally, maybe because I'm an Aries. I take charge very naturally. But there might be readers that sit at their table, someone comes, and they're like, oh, hi, what's going on? How are you? And they don't lead the session. They don't guide the session. But with a short reading, you have to do that. With a long reading, you can talk about how the person is, what's going on in their life, all of that. But with a short reading, you have to kind of keep the boundaries strong. And that is a task in and of itself. And it's a lot easier if you have a script that you follow, as in script like, this is what I say in the beginning to tell them how much time they have. Then we do the reading. And this is what I do at the end so that they know that the reading is coming to an end. I will talk about that when I talk about the process in a second. So that is what I mean by script. Obviously not a script for the reading. You're doing the reading on the spot. And then the fifth really important thing that can also help you to keep those boundaries strong if you are in a setting where you really need to stick to those 5 to 10 minutes is that you could have an egg timer for yourself. The sand goes through it and okay, 5 minutes are over. Or if you feel like it's kind of difficult for you to stop the reading and tell the person we have to stop now, you could do a timer on your phone that rings gently so that people know, oh, we're getting to the end of the reading. Because sometimes you will get people who have a lot to talk about, which is only natural, and it's not something that we should look down upon or be annoyed by or something. But in order to be fair to everyone else who wants a reading, if you're just doing 5-10 readings, 5-minute, 10-minute readings for 10 people, it's still going to take a very long time. So you have to have strong boundaries, and timers really, really help with that. Okay, now let's talk about my process for a short reading. As I said, for my YouTube members and my patrons, I will do a practical demonstration of that, like a training session that you could also follow along with, where you can see how I practically train the process, because it is a matter of training. You have to do a few practice readings, like fake readings where you just make up something in your mind. Oh, this is Sarah and she's asking me XYZ, and now I'm putting down the cards. What do I say to her? How do I handle the situation? Just prepare yourself a little bit. But this process, I will just go through it factually, and then if you want to see it practically, you can go to my members or you can go to my Patreon. All right. So the first 30 seconds are really for setting expectations. They aren't for, hi, how are you? Let's all talk about how we are. And, we don't have time for that if you have a 5-minute reading. If you have a 15-minute reading, you could probably talk about how they are. But if you have a 5 to 10-minute reading, we need to get to the point. So my gold standard is that, first of all, I tell people, hello, I just want to tell you this is all confidential. Secondly, the clearer the question, the clearer the answer is going to be. And we have about 8 minutes or however much together. Now, please tell me what the situation is that you want to talk about. Tell me if you have a clear question. If you don't have a clear question, that's fine as well. We're going to figure it out together. Tell me a little bit. Then They're going to tell you what is going on, but you've already used those first 30 seconds to assert boundaries, and to say, we have this and this much time. I need a clear question from you. If you don't have a clear question, that's okay. Talk about your situation. We'll figure it out together. And the person knows exactly what is happening. It gives safety to the querent as well. They're like, oh, okay. Because some people might be nervous as well getting a tarot reading. Oh, my light is going out, but we still have enough sun. Anyways, so yes, people might be nervous, and giving them some confidence, like saying this is all confidential, this is what is going to happen, will make it much, much easier for you. Because if you're just like, hi, and you just start shuffling the cards and they kind of talk, it has this risk of going, into them talking a bunch. You don't get to the question. You're not sure how to formulate it. They might bring different things. And, it just gets like muddy, like fuzzy, like cloudy. So setting that expectation is very helpful. And of course, we're doing that in a loving way. We're not doing it in a way where this is what is happening and you can't do anything else. No, we're doing it compassionately. And yet, if we have 5 to 10 minutes, that is very important. Now, this is also the time where you can assert other boundaries. If they, for example, start talking about medical things, or should I keep taking this medication? Or they might ask, when will I get married? You could say, I don't quite read about when questions. I don't read about medical questions. But what we can look at is, what are the energies around that topic? Why is it important to you? And don't be afraid of yes, no questions as well. You don't have to go on a rant of like, well, listen, yes and no questions aren't so good for tarot. You don't have time to explain all of that. If they ask a yes, no question, just gently guide them and say like, okay, you want to find a new job. You're asking, will I get a new job? Let's look at what can you do to get a new job? What are the energies surrounding the situation? What would happen if you do get one, if you don't get one? All of these things can be covered quite quickly if you get quick answers from tarot. So that's essentially what you want to do. And then the whole reading process starts after all of this beginning work. It should take about 2 to 3 minutes. If someone has like a complicated topic, it could take up to 3 to 4 minutes for them to say it, which if you have a 5-minute reading, that's not ideal. What I also do is I would, before people even come to me, I could provide a piece of paper that says, these are questions you could ask. And those are very general questions like, what do I need to know? What is blocking me right now? How can I be more confident? So that makes it easier for people to understand those are the questions I can ask. And maybe they don't come with a huge situation that they haven't talked about to anyone in 3 years. And now they're like, I need to solve this all in a 5-minute reading. So giving people a little bit of, do you call it guardrails in English? Guardrails to walk by, questions they could ask. It inspires them in a way to keep the reading succinct, because that is what is needed if you really have to do a short reading. That's why I love long readings. You don't have to have all of these rules in place necessarily. You can really just take more space. Of course, you still have to give the person guidance and guardrails to move within and stick to your own ethics, but it's a lot easier than in a 5-minute reading. Like, if someone has a lot of need for talking and they book a private session with me, I love that. We have time for that. And the talking in itself can be very, very healing, and me listening, asking questions, us consulting the cards together. I love doing that for an hour, hour and a half. I love it. All right. So with the reading process, let's get back to that. We've set the boundaries. We have the question now. So what is important is that you know kind of your own style. Are you the kind of person who draws a lot of cards, or are you the kind of person who just will talk about one card for the whole reading? Remember that cards have a lot of depth if you let them. Let me give you an example of that. The Six of Swords. If I were to just, draw it and I have 1 minute, 30 seconds to say what the meaning is, of course, I would say it's about moving on. It's about cutting ties. It's about knowing the right time to leave, and the time to leave might be now. And you might have support while you do that. You might have to work through some emotions to do that, but you have to move on, period. Now, you could also talk for 5 minutes about the Six of Swords, because the Six of Swords is a whole process of removing yourself from things that no longer serve you. It also implies, keep the Five of Swords in mind, it implies that there was a situation where you were unsure of how to continue. Something has ended, Five of Swords, as I said, something has ended and you're like, how do I go on now? I have to change my thinking. I have to change my patterns. And then the Six of Swords is the moving on from that, but also the warning, Seven of Swords, that in the future you don't start doing shortcuts, or you start displaying a personality that isn't yours. Those are the warning elements that are kind of contained in the Six of Swords already, if you want to talk about it for a long time. Because especially the 1 through 10 cards, they always show you one part of the process, one point of the process. And that is the beauty of it, that you are able to read so much from it. So remember that sometimes one card can tell you so much, and you don't have to get nervous and be like, oh, I need more cards, more cards, more cards. I don't know what to say, Then another thing that is very important is that you always ask people if it resonated, if it didn't, because we don't want to make this I'm just talking at you sort of situation. With 5 minutes, sometimes it really is I'm talking at you situation, because there's no time for anything else. But, if you have 8 to 10 minutes, you can say, did this resonate? What does this bring up in you? Does it make sense to you? How do you feel about it? And that also gives you the opportunity to, if the person is like, no, I don't really feel that, you could draw more cards and see, is there maybe a blockage? Is there something that needs to be taken care of before this veil lifts? What's going on? You could draw more cards and give that person an even better experience then very quickly. Now, end of the reading, very difficult for someone like me who likes to talk long. But at some point, and I love when someone says like, oh yeah, this brings up this and this. I'm like, okay, let's look at that. Let's draw another card about that fear. Let's draw another card about the root of that fear that you might be feeling. And that just makes it a very big reading suddenly. So I have to stop myself and really just answer the question that the person has, and then let them do the rest, because it's not a guided one-on-one session. It's really just a short thought starter, So how do you end things? What I always do is I give a summary at the end. This will kind of already let the person know that you are recapping and that this is coming to an end. So you could say, look again, we had these 3 cards. This is your reminder to blah, blah, blah. This is your reminder to da, da, da. And this shows that right now you are best off doing da, 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 da. So yeah, with that summary, the person gets satisfied and is like, okay, now I can go. And I know this is hard, because for me, tarot is a tool for connection as well. As I said in my one-on-one sessions, when something comes up, someone is like, I don't get it. I'm struggling with this thing. Things come up that you didn't even think of. Someone wants a relationship reading, and suddenly like the cards show that something else is more important, or it's about a deeper wound maybe that the person has, and then you draw cards for that and the root of that and you talk about it. I love it. But yes, we have to stop ourselves from doing that with short readings. Sometimes you can do more than you think in 5 to 8 minutes, or 10 minutes. But sometimes it is also just a very short time, depending on how much the other person says as well. Yeah, so just remember that short readings are really to give people new perspectives, not necessarily for you to talk everything through with them, heal them. You have to trust that the person goes with the information of this reading and works with it and explores their own feelings from it, you know? I feel like a short reading puts a lot more responsibility on the other person. I don't know how you feel about it, but it's like you get this thought starter, this new perspective, and then you have to work on it yourself or forget about it and push it away. But with a long reading, I can help the person actually go through that process and guide them through that process of reflection and healing and integration. So a short reading puts a lot more responsibility on the reader to do the work, to do the homework afterwards, I would say. Now, 2 things before you go. If you would like a longer reading with me, I have added some new reading options in my shop about my 2 expert areas, which is relationships and career, because relationships and career are 2 things that I truly, truly understand for many reasons, but that is a different video. But those are the 2 things that have really defined my life, and I love giving tarot readings on them. And 2, if you want to watch me practice all of this, what I have just taught in a little bit of a role-playing scenario, how I practice myself before I do short readings, to see how I essentially prepare for an evening of reading for multiple people and doing short readings, then you can consider joining my YouTube membership or my Patreon. My YouTube membership is just €3 a month, and you get access to some of these exclusive videos. With Patreon, you get a lot more, plus these exclusive videos that YouTube members get. And with Patreon, you also get journaling prompts, affirmations, collective readings, essays, podcast episodes where I go more in depth about many, many spiritual, witchy, personal, tarot things. And I would love to see you over there, either for the practice session or for whatever else you would like. And thank you so, so much for watching. I will see you soon. Bye bye.